Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. I'm your host, PJ Reilly. Sitting in, as always, is cam manager Josh Grine. Josh, welcome today.
Morning, PJ.
We bring on our special guest today, Dan McCarthy. Dan, thanks for being here.
You bet. PJ, how are you guys?
We are doing well. And before we even start anything, we're going to ask you about that mug sitting there with the unicorns, and that thing is sweet.
Yeah, that thing's this is my coffee stein. It's my good luck coffee stein. My brother actually got me that as a Christmas present. He's incredibly original.
Well, that is definitely an original mug there. Well, hey, Dan, we wanted to dive deep into some archery geek weeds today with you, talking about some equipment stuff. But first, before we get into that, what are you doing these days? How are you staying busy? What's Emily doing? How are the McCarthys weathering this storm here?
Yeah, I think we're doing good. It's just there's plenty to do. We're not you don't usually have a break this time, though. It's really odd. I've never really had a spring off before, so I'm enjoying it. Just enjoying the slowdown, the lack of stress, I guess, that comes with tournament preparation. We're canceled for a while. I mean, so
are you guys shooting, staying, doing regular practice?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm shooting as much as I was before, but that's mostly because we're not supposed to go anywhere. And so my 3D stuff that I usually practice is not at my house. So I mean, I've been shooting inside or shooting outside in the yard, but I'm not really shooting as many targets or anything like that I maybe normally would. But I'm shooting just to keep going. But I'm kind of also one of those people that when there's a big long break, I don't train really hard, just because I feel like without an actual goal to work towards or an event to work towards, I feel like it's just as easy to get lazy in your execution while practicing than sometimes I'll take a break.
I know I always mess around with stuff just so I think like, oh, this is going to be my magic fix, and it usually never is, but that's a different story.
People think, we spend a lot of time, tuning. I do tune my stuff. I do get it there. I don't necessarily super tune my stuff or bear shaft tune my stuff. I'm not overly concerned with it. Be honest, even if it's tearing a half inch, it's not, or 3/4 of an inch, I'm not necessarily satisfied with that being perfect or optimal, but the bows will repeat. I mean, the bow will still shoot really accurately like that as long as I'm doing what I should be doing. So for me, I would rather pour my time into practice and less time into trying to get 5% more efficiency or 5% more accuracy out of my bow. In all reality, you put that bow in a machine or something, even if it's tuned like garbage, it is going to absolutely pound and outshoot just about. It'll outshoot anybody, that's holding it.
Brady Ellison, I was talking to him about his Vegas. He shot the 900, and he said, he was shooting 25 diameter arrows. And I said, how do you get those to tune? And he said, they don't. He said, they fly horrible, but they hit the same spot every time. He said, so I don't care how they tune.
There you go. They're trying to get everything to tune, or they're trying to get their bear shafts to hit with their flet shafts, which I don't get that anyway, because I've never shot a bear shaft in a tournament. I try to get my fletched arrows to shoot well or to tune well, and I don't care about the bear shafts. To me, the same analogy is like if I'm reloading bullets for a gun, I don't reload and build my whole charge around a barrel that doesn't have any twist in it, like it's shooting them through a smooth bore. I try to build everything the way it's going to be performed or the way I'm going to compete with it, and I tune it all to that, and that's it. Like I might shoot a bear shaft after the fact, and I reference where that bear shaft hits in relation to my fletched arrow. If it hits 5 inches low left, I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Dan, you just deflated the internet out there with that super tuning and bear shaft tuning, and that's what keeps us all going, man.
I think people would rather think that, if I could just get this to do this, or if I could get a little bit more out of my bow, I think it'll shoot a lot better for me.
Yes.
But in reality, like and that's true in some cases. There can be something wrong with stuff that could shoot better, but really you're going to maximize your scores or your improvements just off of, yourself, off of really working on form and working on your own personal execution, or reducing anxiety, or increasing strength, or I don't know.
It's easier for me to twist cables, though, than work on my mental game.
Definitely. Me too. Trust me.
So what does
I think not working on your stuff is a form of mental strength in itself. If it's not laziness, if something needs to be done or maintenance needs to be done, do it by all means. But I think a lot of people want to tinker just because it's easier to tinker than it is to, go out and go through the same monotonous process every day of just, putting in your time.
Dan, have you, when you started shooting, did you have a coach? Have you had somebody who's helped you along the way? Where has that knowledge come from to even know what to work on?
I wouldn't call it knowledge. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. My way isn't the right way. It's how I do it. It's just, I found what works for me, what works for my stress levels, what works for my frustration levels, that I can't spend, a whole day working on a flaw. I'm going to get frustrated because I'm a perfectionist kind of person. And if I spent my whole day on it, I'm not going to get it perfect. So I'm just going to get more and more frustrated as the day goes on because I'm not doing it right. And I know what I'm expecting, but I'm not getting there. So I put these little time limits on myself as far as a practice, paying attention to something. I don't necessarily know as far as like an overall effectiveness, if it's a good plan or not, but it works for my mind because I'm only giving myself a short amount of time to work on it, which allows me to put 100% focus on that thing for a little while.
Josh and I were discussing, I know last year you had been shooting the Hinge, and you told Emily, I could win this if I shot a thumb button. And she said, well, then shoot the thumb button. But then and so last year, obviously you won Shooter of the Year, but then here comes Foley this year, you were shooting a Hinge. Tell me about that.
Yeah,
system.
That just proves exactly what I mean. I have no idea what I'm doing.
But it worked pretty well. What's happening in your mind that you pick up the thumb button for this one, the Hinge for that one?
So I rely a lot on how things feel, and sometimes that takes a long time for me to identify, and sometimes it's just anxiety. Maybe it's I don't know. If I knew, I would never struggle, but I struggle all the time. And so, both of them were good, but this year I felt like it was better. I really wasn't searching for a reason. When I switched to a trigger last year, I just shoot a trigger really well, and my shot felt 100% within the first couple days of shooting it, versus trying to continue training with trying to figure out a hinge. That's why I was shooting a hinge in the first place, is just because I'd shot a trigger for so long. I always got questions from hinge shooters, and I was like, I don't know, I should shoot a hinge for a little while to see how I shoot it. And so I wanted to give 3 years with a hinge. I did 2.5, and then decided to just shoot the rest of the year with a button because it hammered for me, and I felt like my shot execution was at a higher quality than it was at the time with a hinge. Now, going back a year before that, I felt like my hinge, the year I shot that hinge, was better than I'd ever shot a button in my life. And then this year, I've always I want to stay with a hinge indoor, and because we still had indoor remaining. We just shot Vegas. We still had indoor nationals coming up. We had Yankton, etc. I really didn't want to switch to a button before those events. I wanted to just stick with my hinge, and my shot execution I felt like was really good quality.
Well, two things there. First of all, to our viewers, if when Dan jokes that he doesn't know what he's talking about, you need to watch his release both on the hinge and the thumb. He shoots both very well. But then the second to that, the point of making quick decisions. I know walking the courses at ASA, Emily has caught me on several occasions. Emily's Dan's wife caught me on several occasions and said, "Go see which release Dan is shooting." So she day of, she doesn't know what is in his hand on the release, or in releases in his hand. So it definitely is a last minute thing for him. Dan McCarthy's first pro tournament. I find the whole story from beginning to end real funny. Would you share that story with us?
I don't mean to get any details wrong, but my memory's not perfect. And so anyway, where it got interesting was the last day, the Sunday. And I was nervous. I knew I was shooting well, and I thought my first day was pretty good. And it put me in a position where I could make a move on Sunday and possibly do well. And I wanted to be really prepared. So we got there early, and I got out and I went over and I judged a bunch of targets. And then I went out on the range. I wanted to be out there like a few minutes early. And so I got out there 15 minutes early or whatever. And we were just about to tell us to shoot up, like time was going to start. And I realized I didn't have my binos. And, or they actually did tell us to start. And I went to like grab my binos and I didn't have them. And I had left them in the truck. And I had ridden with somebody else and they locked the vehicle. So even when I ran out there to get my binos, I shot that target. And then I used my equipment failure or whatever to run back out and grab my binos. And I realized that like the truck was locked and I couldn't get in there to get them. So I came back and I was nervous shooting around. I think I was shooting with Jack Wallace and Richard Leftwich, and I think he was in my group. And I was nervous enough that I didn't know if I could ask anybody else to use their binos. And so I shot the whole day without a pair of binoculars. But I knew the targets really well, and I ended up shooting 24 up without using binos that day, and won the event.
Does OCD Dan now have like 5 pairs of binoculars stashed in different places so that can never happen again?
Yeah, as soon as I get to a tournament, I bury them, squirrel them into different parts of the woods, so I don't have to run all the way back. Yeah.